Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Innovation Deciphered. Today I'm joined by two gentlemen from Sir Robert McAlpine, Padraig Delaney, who's the head of digital for London, and Josh Harding, who's a project digital manager. And they're going to talk today about a very, very innovative project called The Forge, which is a project for land securities with funding by Innovate UK. So we're going to be talking about all things digital, and there's also a case history. The link is in the show notes, so any additional info you want, look in the show notes. Anyway, now on with the podcast. Hi, so today I've got Padraig Delaney and Josh Harding, both from Sir Robert McAlpine's, and we're going to have a really interesting discussion, I'm sure we will, specifically about the use of digital on the Forge project. So, Padraig, give us a bit of a rundown of what Forge project is about and what the digital element is.
So the Forge project is a innovation project. It is a key innovation project for land securities, so Landsec, who we're delivering the project for. We are part of a manufacturer and assembly manager, of which we're part delivering in a joint venture with Mace Construction. So it's a joint venture, 50-50 split between Mace and McAlpine. Not something you typically get in central London. It was a challenge or an opportunity which Landsec came to us for and kind of said, you know, you're two the key delivery main contractors that they work with, and they had this innovative project and they wanted to combine the knowledge and expertise from both of us and kind of lead the way on this project, which is part funded had some funding from Innovate UK because of its platform design, its kit of parts. It's kind of trying to basically be take from what the construction industry from the car industry in terms of that platform design, the kit of parts, being able to actually look at construction in a different way. In a nutshell. And
just quickly on did you mention that you've got some funding from Innovate UK, or was it Landsec who got the funding?
Landsec got the funding, yeah. So that basically allowed us. So part of that funding allowed us to procure a load of digital tools. So usually on a lot of our jobs, our digital offering is the only thing they get, whereas with the additional money we were able to go out and get more of like the innovation tools instead of just our general standard day-to-day stuff.
So what did that look like?
Well, in terms of...
Well, what tools were there?
So we had a tool called Converge, which monitored the concrete strength, so through wireless sensors, which connected to on-the-site data hubs.
These are things that are cast into
the concrete. They gave us sort of live data for people to make data-led decisions. That was like the key driver for that. We implemented a QR coding system for material tracking, so the contour beam system, which is a key part of the platform design. DAM, who manufactured the beams, within their factory, we would QR code the contour beam, and it would contain a load of sub-elements. So when they scanned it, they could check what subcomponents that involved. So that was like a QA process for them, and it meant that the right contour beam would end up in the right location on site, which we had a few issues with, like at early doors. So that really helped us.
So that's sort of an innovation. What borrowed or from the retail industry, I guess, who pioneered that many years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, and that was something that was really the material tracking side of things was something that was really pushed from Landsec. They really wanted to test that.
So we had the temperature monitoring of the concrete, the barcode for inventory.
Yeah.
Were there any other special pieces of digital?
Quite a few.
So
at the very start of the job, so we like Josh said, there's a number of different innovative tools, but stuff that maybe is a bit more entry level requirements that we'd be quite familiar with, and Mace would, in terms of, you know, your common data environments and all that. That's all pretty standard stuff. clash detection tools and kind of issue management platforms, BIM Colab, Dalux for model viewing. All of that is kind of a standard across every single job. But there were a number of key high-level objectives which Landsec had for the Forge that then, to really match the objectives with the digital solutions, we kind of assessed 36 tools originally.
Yeah, then I think we ended up with like 17, 18 in the end, and that was the ones we would take forward.
Crikey, so you looked at 36
Did
and actually took about half of them.
Yeah, did like quite big sort of desktop study. Got like all of the digital tool vendors in early, load of meetings with them, and we were sort of assessing them against a set of Landsec project objectives, which were things like real-time data, lower capital cost, 35% fewer operatives, and things like that. They had 7 or 8 project targets basically, so we would assess those tools against the added value for the project and those targets basically.
Wow. So this Innovate UK project was about the construction process, or was it also looking at the lifespan of the building itself?
Both really.
Yeah, it's both, because it's a net carbon zero's first commercial development that they're based upon kind of scientific targets that will be delivered for Landsec, and one of the first ones in London itself. So it's looking at the embodied carbon as well as obviously trying to be a digital innovative project. So it's quite key and quite core for them that they want to really push for this. And it's fair to say, we had to engage in the right way. It's the first time that we'd teamed up with Mate for a similar development. It was the first time, any of us has really engaged with a project like this. And we had to kind of get the environment, the collaboration right. And I think that's what Landsec were really keen on, is establishing the right relationships, even with the technology companies and all the trades that came on board, to say this is an innovation project. The brief did evolve, and we kind of, we found new efficiencies, and we changed tact on some things, and you had to be quite agile.
That's interesting. So how did you set up the collaboration? Because I presume it was a 3-way one between yourself and Mace and Landsec.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite simple in terms of the digital side of things, because we were sort of controlling that, we were taking the lead on it, and then obviously the whole project team gets involved in the end, but in terms of the setup, we did all of that sort of legwork, and then just went with the flow really. Did
you do the usual things of having workshops to get joint objectives and understand who was making what decisions?
We had a weekly digital review meetings with Landsec to basically try and iron out any issues, and then we also you'd have the software vendors themselves where that it wasn't just there you go, it's over to you. They'd actually try and develop the tool as the project was going on. So all sort of part of the journey, I suppose.
Yeah.
And where are we at now? It's nearly finished, the project. And when did it start?
I think it was January 2020.
Yes.
January 2020. So we're filming now in December 22, and the construction work is nearly finished.
Yeah. Another 3 months.
Another 3 months. Yeah. So we're going to publish this roughly when the project finishes. So that's good timing. So, what was it like? You got the start of this. You've chosen 17 technologies that you don't normally use. Then what happened with those 17?
You just sort of take it day by day. I tried to do only sort of one thing at a time. So you, for instance, you looked at what you needed first. So Converge was obviously the one that I needed to implement first, because the concrete slabs were going ahead, whereas another tool called Disperse, they weren't coming on to the project until the fit out stage. So Disperse, they used to come to site once a week and do 360 photo scans, and then the 360 photo scans turn into automated progress reports, which were really useful.
Wow.
One of the things I think that really helped with that as well, like Josh already touched on, the weekly meetings that we had at the start, we're still having them now at the end, and that's between ourselves, key representatives from Landsec. So Neil Pinnell is kind of the key lead within all of this. It's his kind of brainchild or baby as such. It's it's an innovation project. He's kind of innovation lead for Landsec, and they're keen to get the learnings out of this. But in terms of the project itself, keeping that weekly ongoing, I think as an industry, it's there's a lot of change, and there's always kind of a new thing, and was digital, it's sustainability, and sometimes you get that as a genuine requirement, and sometimes you get it as a nice to have from certain clients or certain developments, or they haven't fully expanded or evolved their requirements in terms of what they want. But Landsec's approach was quite refreshing in a way. They kind of they kept that ongoing, that they showed that kind of passion that they really wanted to use this and succeed with it. So that's why that weekly meeting was ongoing. They were involved all the way through. It wasn't just this is a requirement that we're gonna set and hope for the best with it. It was no, we're gonna get something out of this.
And just looking back, so you're 80 odd percent, maybe 85% through the construction process. I don't need specifics, but of those 17 technologies, have they all turned out to have added value, or have some of them fallen by the wayside?
I think in general, yes. I think the thing that we struggled with as a project team was that a lot of the tools did offer you a lot of data, like automated data, and people aren't used to having all that data, so they get maybe a bit overwhelmed. But it's a cultural thing. So I think future projects, as they get used to having access to all this data, and as the tools develop themselves as well, because they need to also develop, and we need to develop project teams, I think it could be really successful in the future.
Yes, because we talk a lot in this room with vendors of technology, and of course you think it's exactly that. It's almost like going to a buffet and there's every conceivable dish. You can't digest it all in one meal.
No.
I think going back to that research that was done was the key part, actually assessing the tool, but mapping it back to the objective of what Landsec had, but also key drivers for Sir Robert McAlpine, things that we wanted to get out of it too. And we have. Some of the tools would definitely, there's not too many of them that we would kind of say, we find it maybe a more structured process around the QR code tracking, but there wasn't anything in the industry at that time. But the likes of the innovations around reality and progress capture, that's going to be constantly on review for us. That's part of our new strategy within McAlpine as well. And other things like converged strength monitoring, like Josh touched on, the ability to react in terms of program and being able to use that data. That's where the challenge is. The technology, I think, is there. It's kind of the process and the people behind it that we kind of want to focus on.
Let's just talk about the people, because obviously you've got a big project team delivering this. How they get on with all of this data and these new tools?
I think mixed. So some people obviously engage more than others. It's always hard to get everyone to the same sort of level, but I mean, even the client, they were engaged and using some of the tools. Just popping into my head, because Disperse obviously was deployed during the height of COVID, so with the 360 scans where people couldn't get to site, and half the architectural team and structural team were actually working from Barcelona, so the Bride and Wood team, so they were having access to the site virtually, so that was really sort of key.
That's interesting, because that type of technology then that's could be a real disruptor, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah.
It allows anyone to work from anywhere.
Yeah,
as long as you
it can be.
Within reason,
time zones aren't too different.
I think it's definitely going to be one that opens up some how we maybe look at projects and how we structure teams differently. I don't think we're there right yet at this moment to kind of say, well, this allows us to change the way of working, but it allows us to start having those ideas, or start kind of seeing about what the future project delivery model looks like.
And just on some of those big objectives for the project, I think, did you mention they're trying to reduce man hours by 35%?
Labour by 35%, which I think we did actually achieve. So a lot of like the install team sizes were a lot lower than your standard job for the platform, for the primary steel frame, for the contour beams, the MEP modules.
So this is because it was effectively manufactured off-site.
Yeah, and we were also part of what our commitment to Innovate UK was to provide productivity data on basically measuring the success of the platform to see if we wanted to do it again. So we had a data capture plan for each of the trade contractors. So for example, for the MEP modules, NG Bailey had their own sort of tracker. They were reporting to us how many pieces, how many modules they were installing per day. So you had fan coil unit module, ceiling module, pipework module, and they were measuring that against the prototype that we did at Ropley, basically on a farm. So they were measuring the install times against that benchmark, which was good. And
And what happens to all of this data now? Is it between Sir Robert McAlpine, Mason, Landsec, or is it going to be out in the public domain?
Very much public.
yeah,
Part of the key thing within that was through the Innovate UK funding and everything else. It's not just something for the team that worked on it. It's about sharing everything with the wider industry, the case studies, etc. And we've been trying to do as much in terms of that promotion as we can. But one of the key things that really allowed that to happen is the involvement with the Construction Productivity Task Force, as well as the recently published Private Sector Playbook. There's a number of case studies based upon the Forge, but the Construction Productivity Task Force is a group of individual selection of clients, main contractors, and a few other trades and stuff like Morris Row, who are quite basically all joined up on the same kind of objectives of improving productivity within construction. And all of the key tools that we mentioned, as well as everything else that we're capturing, whether it be manually automated, was all captured within automated reports, so Power BI, which Josh had pulled together, and it was capturing all that data. And as an industry, what we're trying to get to with the Construction Productivity Task Force is a consistent way of capturing data in the same standardised way, because how you capture data can be quite different. You know, what you count as a productivity metric might be different to another organisation. So
Same problem in BIM, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, what's the width of a brick? Some people say it's a width, some people say it's the height, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Sort of the plan for us now, really. So on the Forge, we were collecting this data, but we were sort of reviewing it as a team, like retrospectively. It was coming sort of too late to sort of make decisions or drive performance. Whereas now we're trying to get that data on a more frequent basis and review it as a team, and hopefully provide some actual data insights to help drive the performance of the trade contractors. So that's the plan.
If I'm correct, all of this sits within Sir Robert McAlpine. You've got an innovation management system, haven't you? You've got the kite mark, haven't you? The BSI kite mark for innovation management.
Yeah, so we've got obviously ISO 19650 accreditation, etc., which is, you know, key part. It's just kind of business as usual now. It's embedded.
Yes.
But yeah, within our teams, we've got a digital construction function, as well as kind of an information management functions, and as well as that, again, there's a separate kind of innovation team. So kind of collectively, making sure that we're aligned to standards, because what's the point in making something completely unique to McAlpine? It has to be, you know, understandable, kind of common language across the industry. But it's a key thing, and I suppose with the changes and emerging legislations and everything else, it kind of forces us to keep ahead of the game, really.
So here we are. The project is 85% complete. Sounds like you've had a massive success. Presumably you're going to take this learning, and presumably Macewell and Landsec. Is there going to be another project with Landsec, or are you going to be able to roll this out with your other clients as well?
That's what we're hoping. So at this moment in time, but the project itself, so it's called The Forge, but it went through many names. So it was 105 Sumner Street, then Office 1.0. So Office 1.0 is the original concept, because Office 1.0, then you would have Office 1.1, 1.2, Office 2.0. So that's about reusing kind of what has been learned on it. So that is the target within Landsec. In terms of their commercial development portfolio that's coming up at the moment, there's nothing in the next short term, but the longer term there is. So that's obviously where they'd like to reuse it. In terms of, for Sir Robert, Bryden Wood, obviously, in terms of the key designer in there, who, you know, they're looking after the architectural, structural, and MEP design. That was one of the key kind of key
They're pioneers
teams.
of the componentisation, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. And they will continue to harvest kind of the learnings from that. But for Landsec and for Sir Robert McAlpine, we will want to really take the learnings forward on Josh's next projects. The plan is that we will take the best of and keep ensuring that we kind of evolve it really.
Well, that's been terrific, really terrific to hear about the Forge and this, particularly how this Innovate UK funding has been deployed on this strategic project for Landsec. Sounds like it's been a tremendous success. So, Padraig, Josh, thank you very much. And to everyone else, see you on the next podcast.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.